John, thank you very much for hosting the event today.
Pleasure.
Initial reaction?
My initial reaction is often the same at any event of this ilk. Huge enthusiasm, huge determination to make the world a better place, if you like. And then the reality is when you get back home tonight or tomorrow morning, you think, how on earth do we do that? The health industry is such a complicated industry with so many different strands to it. And I sometimes wonder whether, listen, we were told, so how often were we told today about certain elements that don't talk to other elements within it? And I just think that my abiding thought, leaving at the end of the day, is it's like anything. It's the old thing about if two people and a horse pull X, 4 people and a horse pull 5X, and 8 people and a horse pull 50X. The more people that work together get things done much more readily. And I just think that the key lesson from today for everybody, whether they're GPs, whether they're people working for local authorities, whether they're guys who run fitness clubs, whether they're personal trainers, actually if everybody works together, then actually a lot of good could be done in actually quite a short space of time.
Okay. Just thinking about you as a very famous presenter, in particular in relation to sport, is sport the problem as to why we're so physically inactive? What do you think sport should do to effectively make it a much broader physical activity effectively?
Not a day goes by in my life, genuinely, when I don't meet at least 3 or 4 people who say, I hate sport. Because it's kind of got this generic, getting muddy, cold showers, competitive, eye gouging, it's got, there is, for people who aren't interested, they're not interested.
The 80%.
And I'm not sure they're the 80% who aren't interested, because a lot of the 80% who don't take part are quite happy to sit and watch football and say he's a bit fat. So, well, funnily enough, he doesn't look very fit to me, without seeing the irony of that. You criticise some guy who's slightly overweight playing football. Well, with the best will in the world, take a look at yourself. And I think one of the problems is that sports kind of is the generic term for people who don't want to do any kind of physical activity. And so wrongly, walking gets lumped in as sport. Walking's not sport, it's what you do. It's what you do to get from A to B, because it's often quicker than getting the bus. And it makes you feel better, and it's good for you. But because walking and just getting on a bike and going for a swim is all classified as sport, it's not. Going to the local swimming bath and just swimming for half an hour, to me, is not sport. That's just a recreational activity in the same way as playing the guitar. It just happens to involve a bit of physical effort. And so I do think it's semantics a bit, but I think sometimes we can get bogged down in sport. And actually it's not about sport, it's just about activity, it's about getting involved, it's about physicality more than it's about sport.
Let's talk about the media, because sport is very newsworthy. It has a tremendous audience watching it. The Olympics proved that. How do you think the media could play a role in getting people more active and getting them to understand that watching a rugby match or football match is one thing, but actually taking some exercise to look after your health and well-being is something completely different?
This is just one little idle thought, but I've always thought it. The most influential programmes on British television are the soaps, the high-profile soaps.
Yes.
When did you ever see a scene in EastEnders or Corrie when people are going for a walk? How many scenes are shot of people on bikes taking a dog for a walk? People got dogs. Do they never take them for a walk? I don't think they do. It's always in a pub. It's always eating. It's always a sedentary activity. And I just think that far too often that the images that are portrayed are just of. It's almost as though sport doesn't exist. When I say sport, that in the generic terms, about going to the gym almost doesn't exist. About going for a walk doesn't exist. About just being outdoors almost doesn't exist. So I think the media, in the widest terms, could make a big effort in that aspect to actually improve people's just perception of doing something, doing as opposed to just watching. And the other thing as well, we make the point, it's one of those difficult things, we make the point, if you talk about sport, we bang the drum endlessly about the commitment, the sacrifices, the effort that people have put in to be the best of the best. Now that actually is a bit of a turn-off to a lot of people. You know, the idea that you've got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to your swimming pool to be an Olympian in swimming, or you know, you're out on a freezing cold lake rowing at 6 o'clock in the morning. For a huge percentage of people, that's, my God, you're not getting me doing that. So in a funny kind of way, sport can be its own worst enemy, because we're trying to extol the virtues of how fantastic it is, but actually, for a lot of people, what those of us who love it think is so wonderful about it is precisely why they hate it. You know, and I played at, you know, at a school. I went to a school where sport was compulsory, you know, absolutely compulsory. And those poor so-and-sos who were stuck on the wing playing rugby or football and never got the ball, A, because they didn't want it, and B, because they were useless. And so the combination of the two just snowballed. No wonder they hate sport. No wonder they have absolutely no interest in it. So, you know, that everybody has a responsibility within this to try and encourage people, not just to go out and play games, but just to get involved in making themselves feel happier. Because and I do think the one message that, and it's not sports responsibility, it's everybody involved in the leisure industry. You actually, I know a lot of people don't believe it, they just don't believe it, but it is true. If you've taken some exercise, you feel better. You feel better from top to toe. And that is the message, more than any other message, that I think just doesn't get out there and people are almost oblivious to.
Last question. As somebody now who has facilitated, run our summit for 2 years now, you're learning a lot about us. Now that we've changed our name to UK Active, what's your advice in just, I suppose, advising us as to how we ensure that the energy that has happened today, 420 people, a cross-section from medics to professors, what's your advice to UK Active?
Well, you know who was here today. You know, you've got their details. I think you need to regularly be in touch with them and say, as a consequence of what we didn't decide, there wasn't a resolution at the end of today, but of what was discussed and what was generally believed to be the right way forward, what has happened after 1 month, after 3 months, after 6 months? I think that's very important to see what NHS departments have been doing, what doctors have been doing, what local authorities have been doing. And I think the other key thing is, it's all very well Andy Burnham doing a bit of political showboating and saying it's a non-party issue and we must all work together. Right, well, how do you follow that up? You know, constantly be on his back. Because it's, at any conference, no matter what the subject is, it's very easy to stand on a stage and say, we must all do this. But actually, unless you keep chasing people, and keep saying, have you really done that? Have you honestly done it? Have you, what effort could you have made to ensure that happened? You come back 12 months later, and you say, well, you may recall when we said and nothing's happened at all. And I just think you have to be like a dog with a bone sometimes, and you have to just keep pursuing people. And I think in the end, often people get fed up with being pursued, and they think the only way to get rid of you is to actually do what they said they were going to do. And I also think the one other thing I would say, almost more than anything else, is to try and get all those disparate people who were there today from such a ridiculously diverse variety of occupations to talk to each other. Because even though that was the message of today more than anything else, you suspect that the local authority people will go off on that train, and the health service people will go off over there, and when they might not speak to each other until this time next year. And the key thing is, you know, he said this and he agreed with him. Have you spoken to each other in the intervening period? I think that's all about. I think the more that there becomes a groundswell of opinion across every single area of the health industry, that this is the path down which we have to go, there's more likelihood of it happening. But the longer we keep going off in different directions, it ain't going to happen.